Well, good evening out there. This is Matthew Whitehouse from the South Carolina State Museum. I'm here in our observatory, and we have a live view of Saturn right now. So I'm going to leave this live view up for a few minutes, and then I'm actually going to take a picture of Saturn, a still image, and display that for a while. And we'll go back and forth between a still image and our live view. And I think the still image might actually make it a little easier for you to see, especially if you're watching on a phone, because Saturn is actually pretty small in this view right now. But at any rate, if you have questions about Saturn, about astronomy, space, the astronomy programs here at the South Carolina State Museum, please feel free to pop those in the Facebook or YouTube comments, and I'll just be hanging out here to answer any questions that you might have. Um, so just enjoy and feel free to pop questions my way. And in just a few minutes, I'm going to switch over to a still image of Saturn. So you'll actually get to see me take that. Uh, I do have the red lights on in the observatory. So here in the classroom, I've got all the lights off, so it's dark. Over in the classroom, or excuse me, the observatory, I do have the red lights on. And those are the lights that don't mess with our night vision. And you can actually see the telescope behind me. I've got myself in a small view, but you should be able to see at least a little bit of the telescope behind me, kind of a little bit above my head. So once again, feel free to pop questions in those Facebook or YouTube comments, depending on where you are watching. I'll just hang out here and see if any questions come in and be ready in just a minute to take a still photo of Saturn to show you. So enjoy. So once again, if you have any questions about this view of Saturn or about space, astronomy in general, could be about the James Webb Space Telescope maybe, or about astronomy programs here at the South Carolina State Museum, feel free to post those questions in our Facebook or YouTube comments. They'll actually show up right here on screen for me, and I'll be able to answer them on air. So I'm going to go ahead now and stop our live video feed. And I'm going to switch us to a still image that I'm actually going to take right here, kind of in front of you. So we're going to turn our video feed off. And I'm going to get us set up here to make a still image. All right. I don't know how this one's going to turn out. I might have to tweak the exposures, but let's just take a quick exposure, take a quick picture here and see what we get. Okay, well, there we are. Picture just came through. Oh, that one looks pretty nice. And I actually see some color in this one here. I'm going to display it in just a second. It looks like the live view is actually overexposed a bit. But I'm actually going to tweak the camera just a little bit more and see which one of these I like better. Use a slightly shorter exposure time. See how this one came out. Oh, so I'm going to compare the two, see which one I like better. Well, I like both of them to be honest. But I'm going to start with this one here that's just a little bit brighter. And what I'm going to do is zoom it up as far as you're gonna go. To zoom that in just a little more. Yeah, there we go. Well, that's a little bit too zoomed in. Uh, Zoom this up a little more, and hopefully we get something that makes it a little easier for you to see, especially if you're observing on your phone. Because if you're observing on your phone, Saturn's actually going to look kind of small. So we're going to try that. I can actually see the rings pretty well, so hopefully you can as well. So once again, if you have any questions, feel free to pop those here. Oh, Pat asked, do you do programs for elementary students? Yes, we do. So the museum is open, um, and of course we're open to field trip groups. There are not any special observatory programs for field trip groups right now, except that the observatory is open from 12 to 5 Tuesday through Friday. It's actually open from 12 to 5 Tuesday through Saturday and 1 to 5 on Sunday. But if you're coming with a school group, we are open up here starting at 12, and you're welcome to bring your kids in, and they'll be greeted by an educator who'll show them what the telescope's looking at. It's usually going to be the sun. We also have planetarium shows for school groups. The other thing we have are virtual programs on distance learning. So we can actually send live images of usually the sun, or if you've scheduled something at night, which we can do, planets and stars and such to your classroom. And your students can interact with me over like Zoom or Google Meet in real time. And we can show them what the telescope's seeing, talk about the sun, answer questions. So that's actually one of the big things we do for elementary students. And that's a virtual program. It's free. Um, and I'm actually going to put my email address in the comments here. So this is the person you contact. So here comes my email address. If you want to learn more about our programs, contact me right there at that address. Pat says, thank you. Yay, Pat. Look forward to hearing from you. So once again, if you just joined us, my name is Matthew. I'm the observatory manager here at the South Carolina State Museum, and I'm hanging out in our observatory classroom with a live view of Saturn from our telescope. You can see the telescope behind me in that room behind me with all the red lights. And if you have questions, feel free to put those in the Facebook or YouTube comments, and I'm happy to answer them on the air. So anything about what you're seeing in the telescope here with Saturn, or astronomy, space, astronomy programs here at the South Carolina State Museum, the James Webb Space Telescope, which has released some really cool pictures lately. So just anything in general, feel free to pop those questions in the Facebook or YouTube comments. We love it when our audience engages with us. We love it when you post us questions. So don't be shy. Feel free just to write a question in the Facebook or YouTube comments, and we will get that answered for you. So I'm just going to hang here and let you all enjoy the view and not talk too much, but I will be on the lookout for questions. Holly's Island Sunrise and Surf Report says, great view. Thank you so much. Is there any way to zoom in closer? Let me try. So one of the things that can happen if I zoom in too close is the image will start getting kind of weird and pixelated. But yeah, I know the image of Saturn's really small. Let me see what I can do here. Let's zoom this in a little more. Woo. See how that looks. Jordan, how's that? So Jordan, we did zoom in the image. Is that better for you? Feel free if it is to just pop a yes or even a no if we need to zoom in more in the comments. Thank you, Jordan. So great that your kid's enjoying this as well. So I should clarify that this is currently not 100% live from the telescope. This is actually a picture of Saturn that I took just a few minutes ago. We can show you a live view, and we can switch back to that in a few minutes, but the live view doesn't quite give us the capacity to zoom in that we have with this picture here. And so that makes it the live view a little harder to look at, especially if you're watching from a phone and the image is really small. So I took this image actually on the air about 10 minutes ago or so. Actually, probably more like 5 minutes ago. So just for fun, I'm going to switch us back to the live view. We're not going to stay on the live view very long because it is a little harder to look at, but this will just be so you can enjoy that for a minute and actually see what a video image of Saturn looks like. So I'm going to send this image away. Don't worry, we'll bring it back. Turning on the live view is also a good way for me to monitor the telescope to make sure everything's still working right. Okay, there we go. Let's see. Can't I zoom this up anymore? I think this is as far as it goes. So you're going to see how small the live video feed is here. So we won't hang out on it for very long because it is so small. Let me get this back for you. There we go. There's the live video feed. One thing that you might notice in the video feed is that the image does seem to dance around just a little bit. And that dancing around, that's actually not Saturn itself. That is air turbulence in our atmosphere. So that air turbulence in our atmosphere is actually making the image appear to kind of jump around and bounce around and such. Right now, Saturn's getting a little bit lower in the sky, and as it does, it's going to tend to bounce around a little bit more. So there's some other planets to be watching for. So Saturn is actually the faintest of the planets in the sky right now. And it's a beautiful clear night. So if you haven't gone outside to look at the sky, I encourage you to. I'd encourage you to do that sooner rather than later because it does look like there might be a weather system coming in and some maybe clouds coming in later tonight. But if you go out, Saturn is, well, first of all, one of the first things you'll notice is the moon. So we've got the moon, and then there's a bright thing to the left of the moon. That's actually Jupiter. And then Saturn's off to the right of the moon and quite a bit dimmer. Then, if you look in the east, especially if you have a clear eastern horizon, you will see another planet rising, and it looks super red. So, this red planet that you see rising off to the east, what planet is that? Post in the comments. What planet do you think that is you can see if we go out and look to the east right now? So, yes, once again, if you go out and look to the east, there's another planet that you can see in the sky. Which planet is that? It looks very red, noticeably has a noticeably red color to it. Shane asks, is it Mars? Yes, it is. That is definitely Mars off to the east. So tonight we have Jupiter, Saturn, the moon, and Mars. It's quite a nice solar system show. Now, as we get further into the winter, Jupiter and Saturn are actually going to start to get low in the sky. Especially Saturn's going to get lower first. But then Mars is going to get higher up in the early evening. So we'll really get a beautiful view of Mars as we go into the new year. So Mars is going to kind of take over the planet show here in just the next month or so. I'm going to switch us back to the still image of Saturn. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take another image so we can get as fresh a live image as we can. So let me take one more picture here. Going to try to tweak this exposure time a little bit more. Come on. Ah, all right, that's what we want to do. That's what we want to do, camera. Try to see if I can get this one a little brighter. Again, I just kind of trialed and errored the exposure settings. So let's just take a picture, see what we end up with. Okay, that was not what I wanted. I pressed the wrong button. Oops. There we go. Let's see what this picture looks like. Oh, that one looks really nice, actually. So let me get this one zoomed up for you, because we know that we really like to have these zoomed in so you can see them better. That is if I can get the zoom control to cooperate. Here we go. Alrighty. So that's a fresh picture of Saturn. I just took that picture just a minute ago. So once again, if you just joined us, feel free to pop any questions that you might have in the Facebook or YouTube comments, depending on where you're watching from. And I'm here. I'm Matthew. I'm the observatory manager here at the South Carolina State Museum, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. And they don't have to be about Saturn. They can be about the night sky. They can be about space or astronomy. They can be about our astronomy programs here at the museum. We have the observatory, and we also have planetarium shows. So feel free to just pop any questions that you might have our way, and we'll answer them for you. What is the magnification of the telescope currently? So it would actually be a little easier to answer that question if we had an eyepiece on the telescope. So with the camera on the telescope, I'm actually not sure exactly what the magnification is. When we put an eyepiece on the telescope, we know what the focal length of the eyepiece is, and then we can do some really simple math to figure out what the magnification is. Um, but right now, I would say we're probably magnifying no more than about 50 times. It's fairly low magnification. Um, and that is why the image is a little bit small. And that is actually one sort of artifact of the camera is the camera that we're using doesn't magnify that much. The interesting thing about magnification is that it actually changes depending on what eyepiece you put on the telescope. So different eyepieces will produce different magnifications, and that's true if you change eyepieces on one telescope, you'll change the magnification. But then the same eyepiece on two different telescopes will often lead to two different magnifications. So the whole question of magnification is actually not straightforward at all. Why is Saturn tilted? So the way we see Saturn actually changes depending on how we're oriented to looking at Saturn and how Saturn is oriented towards us. And it turns out that we see the rings of Saturn in different configurations. I want to say it's like a 15-year cycle. The rings go from being like really open out so you can see them really well, kind of like my hand is right now, to like edge on, like my hand is now, where you can't really see them very well. So that's one thing that happens. I think the reason why Saturn is tilted the way it is right now is just the way I happen to put the camera on the telescope. So don't necessarily want to go and rotate the camera. There's some attachments on the telescope that we use to mount the camera safely. It's about a $3,000 Nikon DSLR that we have on the telescope right now, so we don't want it falling off. Uh, but there are a couple of ways in which we have to orient the camera just to keep out of the way of some of the things that we use to lock some of the locks on the telescope to keep the camera in place. So we don't have totally unlimited options as to how we orient the camera. So I have a sort of a challenge question for you all, a little bit of a thought question. The fun thing about these sort of challenging questions in the museum setting is there is absolutely no pressure to get them right. Just take a wild guess. So scientists have found a lot of planets around other stars. So we know about the planets in our solar system, but we also know about many planets around other stars here in our galaxy. How many planets do you think astronomers have found around other stars in our galaxy? Once again, how many planets around other stars in our galaxy do you think astronomers have found? And just take a wild guess. Feel free to stick whatever number you want in those comments. This is just kind of for fun. Is it maybe 100, 500, 5,000, 10,000? How many planets do you think astronomers have found around telescopes, or excuse me, around stars other than the sun? So any guesses as to how many planets astronomers have found orbiting other stars in our galaxy? No, it's not a terribly easy question. All right. Like I said, this is not a terribly easy question. So I'm actually going to tell you. I have looked this up, and as of November 1st, there are 5,246 confirmed exoplanets. Now, an exoplanet is a planet around a star besides our sun, and there are 5,246 confirmed ones right now. I'm going to put that in the comments. It's always kind of fun to talk about planets around other stars when we're talking about the planets in our own solar system. One of the things that I always like to remind people of is that of these 5,246 planets that we found around stars other than the sun and the 8 planets around our sun, there's only one planet that has life. And that is, of course, our planet, the Earth. And one of the things that astronomers like to remind people of is that of these 5,246 planets, they're all really far away. So it'd be very hard to get to them. There's really no planet B, Our planet is the only planet that we have to live on. And since our planet's the only planet that we have to live on, we need to take care of it. And certainly, we hear a lot in the news about things like climate change and what have you. Well, these are all really, really important issues. And it's really critical that we take care of our own planet because there happens to be a habitable planet in the universe that we know of, and we're living on it. And it's a really beautiful planet. And of course, Saturn is a really beautiful planet too, with its wonderful rings. So, if you have joined us recently, feel free to pop any questions that you might have in our Facebook or YouTube comments. I'm happy to answer those um, online. And once again, we are looking at an image of Saturn that I just took from the telescope a few minutes ago. Alicia says, that's really cool. Thank you, Alicia. Alicia, was that our view of Saturn, or was that the number of confirmed exoplanets, or is that both that you found really cool? And I don't know if I'm saying your name right. I love it. Actually, both. The image makes it seem so much closer than it is. Yeah, and we have this image zoomed up just a bit for folks who are watching on their phones. But yep, it does give you the feeling that we're really Saturn is close. Oh, yeah, I got your name right. Excellent. So sometimes when we show pictures of Saturn or people look at Saturn through the telescope, one of the things we'll sometimes hear is it looks fake Or are you sure you didn't stick a sticker on the front of the telescope? 'Cause that's actually really common, and I can assure you this is not fake. This is not a sticker on the front of the telescope. We're actually looking at the real planet Saturn here. Felicia asks, may I ask what kind of telescope that was taken from? So this is actually was taken from our telescope here at the South Carolina State Museum. I'm actually going to make our view of Saturn go away for just a minute so you can actually see our telescope. So now you actually see me really big, and don't worry, we'll bring the Saturn view back in just a sec. But in the view now, you can actually see the telescope behind me. It's this sort of gray looking tube that looks like it's coming out of my head. And you'll also see that in the observatory behind me, it looks really red and spooky in there because we're using red lights. Those are the lights that don't mess with our night vision. So the telescope that we are using for this image, this view of Saturn, is our 1926 Alvin Clark telescope. So Alvin Clark was a major American telescope builder back in the late 19th, early 20th centuries, and we have this really beautiful Clark telescope here at the South Carolina State Museum. It was originally actually at Columbia University in New York City. It is a refracting telescope. That means that it's using a lens to create the image. And the main lens on this telescope is 12 inches across. So while the telescope looks kind of big, especially if you're seeing it here in person, it's actually, on the grand scheme of things, a pretty small telescope, but it's very accessible. A lot of the really, really big telescopes that astronomers use for research sit on really high mountaintops in the middle of nowhere in places like Hawaii and down in South America, and they're really hard to get to. But this observatory, you can actually come visit the museum, and we're open for good chunks of each day during the daytime looking at the sun. So we have a special telescope that lets us look at the sun safely. So I'm going to make sure we can see our view of Saturn again. So I'm going to change. There we go. Got our view of Saturn back for you. Just wanted to make the view of me and the background big so you could actually get a good view of the telescope. So thanks for that question, Alicia. Yeah, the sun's actually really cool because we can see it changing every day. So of course, the sun is a star. It is by far the closest star to us. It is not the biggest star in space by any means, but it is a very close star to us. And because of that, we can see day-to-day changes in things like sunspots and prominences. We do again have a special telescope here at the museum. It's actually one that lives on top of our big telescope that we use to observe the sun. So do not try that at home. You don't want to ever look at the sun through uh, any odd telescope or binoculars or just your eyes because you will damage your eyes. Well, we do this with very special equipment here. So, once again, if you'd happen to just join us, this is an image of Saturn that I took from our telescope here at the South Carolina State Museum just a few minutes ago. So, it's not 100% live, but it is almost live. And if you have any questions about what you're seeing, or about astronomy or space in general, or astronomy programs here at the South Carolina State Museum, feel free to pop those in either the Facebook or YouTube comments, depending on where you're watching. We are streaming both to our Facebook page and to our YouTube channel. And those questions will pop up right in front of me, and I can answer them. Does the computer software track the image once locked on? Yes. So once we have the telescope pointed, um, one of the drive motors on the telescope actually starts to move very, very slowly to follow the object as it tracks across the sky. So everything appears to move across the sky. Sun, planets, moon, stars appear to track across the sky from east to west. And that's a motion that's caused by the rotation of the Earth. Um, with our telescope here, it is indeed tracking. It's moving very slowly, so we can follow the planet as it moves across the sky. So, yep, we are tracking for sure. So, if you just recently joined us, I also encourage you to go look a little bit further up in the Facebook or YouTube comments. We have this question I posed here, which is kind of a neat question to think about when we're getting this really awesome view of one of the planets in our own solar system. So, it's how many planets do you think astronomers have found orbiting stars other than our sun? So the answer is I actually looked it up, and as of November 1st, there are 5,246 confirmed exoplanets. So an exoplanet is a planet around another star. Now, one of the things that's really great to talk about with astronomy is the importance of our own planet. So these 5,246 planets are really far away. It'd take a very long time to get to even the closest ones. Um, and of all the planets in our solar system, so the 8 planets in our solar system and these over 5,000 planets elsewhere in the galaxy, there's only one that we know of that has life on it. Now, that's not to say that there couldn't be life elsewhere. In fact, I would be kind of surprised if there weren't. Um, but we have a very beautiful, habitable planet here that we live on, and that means that we need to take care of it. So there's a lot of you go and look at the news, and there's often a lot of not so great news about the environment and such and climate change. These are really important issues, and it's really important that we address them because we have a very beautiful planet that we need to take care of. So it's always kind of neat to talk about that and think about that when we're looking at one of the other beautiful planets in our solar system. So, once again, if you just happen to join us, we're in about the last 9 minutes or so of this live stream from the observatory here at the South Carolina State Museum. We're looking at an image of Saturn that I took just a little while ago from our telescope. It's not a 100% live picture, but it is a picture that we took just a few minutes ago here. And if you have questions, my name's Matthew. I'm the observatory manager here at the South Carolina State Museum. So if you have any questions, feel free to pop those in the Facebook comments or YouTube comments, depending on where you're watching. We love it when you interact with us and ask questions, and we'll be sure to answer them on the air. So I'm just going to hang out here and see if in these last few minutes or so any questions come in. So, if you just joined us, we're in the last few minutes here of our live stream from the South Carolina State Museum Observatory of the planet Saturn. So, that's what you're seeing here. You're seeing a view of Saturn that we just took a few minutes ago in our telescope here at the museum. And we will be on the air until 8 p.m. So if between now and then you have any questions you'd like to ask us, feel free to pop those in the Facebook or YouTube comments, depending on where you're watching. I'll see those questions right in front of me and I will answer them on the air for you. And as we're getting towards the end of our time, one of the things I do want to encourage you to do, if you haven't already tonight, is go outside and look at the sky. I'd recommend doing that earlier rather than later because it does look like there's a big weather system coming in and some clouds coming in probably later on tonight. But there are actually three planets in the sky right now. So if you go out and you look up, one of the first things you're going to notice is going to be the moon. And then Jupiter is going to be the bright looking thing off to the left of the moon. Saturn is now going to be starting to get kind of low in the sky, but it's going to be off to the right of the moon and quite a bit dimmer. Other planet to really watch for, and I think this is one of the most beautiful ones, is in the east. It's now getting pretty high up in the east. You'll see a very red planet. That is Mars. So Mars has a very distinct red color to it. So I do encourage you, especially, to go outside and look for Jupiter and Mars and the moon. Saturn's a little trickier because it's a little further away and fainter, but go check out the planets in the sky tonight. Go and look up and see what you can see. Even if you happen to be in uh, in an urban area like here in Columbia or in one of our suburbs like Irmo or Lexington, you'll still, even if you have a lot of light pollution, be able to see the moon and planets. So I do encourage you to go out and take a peek. And of course, if you don't get a chance to tonight, the planets will still be there. Jupiter and Saturn and Mars will still be in the sky in subsequent nights. The moon will change as it change phase, but those three planets will still be around. So don't worry if you happen to miss it tonight. So we're just about to the end of our time here. Any last minute questions before I say goodbye for the evening? All right. Well, thank you all so much for joining us. And check out the museum's website and Facebook page for future telescope live streams. And we hope to see you here at the museum. Have a wonderful evening, everyone. Bye.